Over to Colin, thank you.
Okay, for those who don't know me, I'm Colin, Colin Newlyn, and yes, as you know, why we ended up in this room. Who was there? Out of 1, 2, 3. Right. Okay. So I've got some notes, sort of what I thought happened, my observations. But please feel free to contribute, and let's make it more of a sort of a discussion of what happened and what we think we got out of it and what we think we could learn from it. And it was really about trying to create a space for a different type of conversation within this group of people. That was our motivation, so that we could actually get some stuff going. And we chose open space. This is this sort of way of running meetings that was designed to deal, for companies and organisations to deal with really complex, big issues where there was no agreement on what the way forward was. So it's sort of like those really big, hard things that you can't really get the shape of, and so it was a way of dealing with that. And it's since been used in lots of different ways to sort of generate new ideas and play around with them. And it's sort of, what we did was a bit of a mix with like startup weekend type stuff, where people come up with ideas for building things and stuff. So lots of people have used it in different ways. There's other things called jam sessions, which are very similar. So it's, all the same idea. So I'll just get a glass of water while I'm doing this. I'll just go through what we actually, what the session was like. And we started off so I started off with an invitation, and this is very important. It's an invitation for everybody to join in the open space. I didn't actually use the word invitation initially, but that was my intention, was to get everybody involved. I did later on invite people to come up with their ideas. And I just want you to think about it. It's not a word we actually use very often, but it's much more powerful to invite people in to do something than to ask them to come in to do something, especially than to tell them to. Because to me, it creates an even power balance, right? So even though I was at the front of the room, I was inviting everybody on equal terms to come and join in this. And I think for me, that's a very important part of collaboration. Because if there's a power indifference, if one person's got more power than another, that's not really collaboration. You're not coming as equals. So when people talk about collaborating because I'm running a project and I got so-and-so to do this and so-and-so to do that and so-and-so to do that, to me that's not really a true collaboration, because there's somebody in charge. So that was something you might want to think about, times when you might be able to use that in your business. So if you actually want to co-create something with somebody, invite them to join you to do it. Yeah. So when I work with coaching clients, I invite them to a coaching conversation first of all. So we actually sit down together to explore their area. So then I introduced, so there's 5 principles and 1 rule, and a couple of other types of people in the room. And I thought I'd just run through these to remind those of you who were there and for those who weren't. So whoever comes of the right people is the first one. So we don't worry about who's not here, it's just who's here is important. This is very much the same as for B-Corps meetings, isn't it? Is that right? Right. Wherever it happens is the right place. So there wasn't a right place to be to have a conversation. Wherever you had a conversation during the course of the day, that was the right place. Whenever it starts is the right time, which was really useful, because we didn't start at what we had said was the right time, but it was the right time, even though it was a bit later than that. Whatever happens is the only thing that could have happened. So again, this is really about being present, isn't it? You're not worrying about, well, that shouldn't have been like that. It should have been like that, and we should have done that, right? So we just be in the moment, and then we're doing the right thing. And similarly, when it's over, it's over. So we haven't missed anything. There's no bit that should have carried on because it's over. That's fine. So to me, this is about I don't know what you think. I felt this is about taking off the constraints. Right.
It's about freedom.
It's about freedom. Funnily enough, isn't it? Isn't it strange how these things come together? So I don't know if you felt that in the room who were there. If they felt that was like giving you just permission to let go of everything, right? This is the right thing to do.
It was very safe.
Safe.
It was a very safe space.
Yeah.
To just show up and say what you thought and felt, and everyone just accepted it.
Yeah.
It was great.
Because it was the right people standing up, and it was the right thing that was happening, and it was okay. So we got everybody to. So I invited people to come up, and they did their pitch of the thing they wanted to talk about, which could be a project or an idea or a space they wanted to go to, and then we put together the agenda from those people. And we took a number, went and stood in the part of the room that they chose. And if you wanted to get involved in that conversation, you went over and joined them. And they have this thing, the rule of 2 feet, which is if you're not learning or contributing, go somewhere else. And again, this to me was about freedom, isn't it? It's about we weren't feeling constrained like, well, I've joined this group now, I've got to stay here because they'll get upset if I leave. Because it just says here, it doesn't matter. If you're not actually contributing, you have a responsibility to go somewhere else where you will be contributing. People took to this quite quickly, I thought. The reserve came down rather quickly. Yes, so there was no right or wrong. So I thought, it seemed to me it was quite liberating for people, and I thought some people took to it like a duck to water really. And then there's a couple of things about the types of people who are there. So you have bumblebees and butterflies. That's it. Come to those. So you can see here bumblebees buzzing around, and they're basically going, oh, great conversation here. Those people over there are talking about that. You should be over there. And those people over there just said this, and so all that stuff. And then you get the butterflies, who are not just floating around and just keeping the vibe going really, and making it keep fluid and making sure everybody's happy. And those are important contributions. So they may not be leading a conversation. They may not be getting involved in picking up actions or whatever, but they're making a contribution in that way, which is very important. And some people took to this really, really well as well. And be prepared to be surprised with the instruction. So I think that's all the slides I've got, isn't it? Yes. So what happened? Well, we had a few topics, lots of topics came up, a surprising variety of topics. Not all of them worked. Some did, some didn't. I'll give you some thoughts on that later on. But the point was, because none of that wasn't wrong, that just meant that people were trying stuff out. So I know, so Beiju put something forward, and then after I said, no, this isn't right. So he'd been through that, the experimentation process. Do something, reflect, learn, adapt, do it again. And some of the topics that came up were really surprising to me. I don't know what you thought. I thought it was marvellous the way that people grasped the opportunity to actually stand up and share their dreams and ideas. And I was quite surprised by that. Some of the stuff I was thinking, well, I had no idea where that came from. So, and part of that was actually people, as you say, people actually, to me, they were growing in front of our eyes. So, Simon, those of you who know Simon. So Simon, those who don't know Simon always stands up with his iPad in front of him, and he's got everything in front of him. And he stood up with no iPad, and this massive idea that he's got, which I can't even remember what it is now.
Is that the build a retreat for us all to hide away in?
No, that was Jerry.
It was something like World Love.
It was about
It was teaching children to be able to communicate.
World peace.
World Peace.
Yeah.
Audacious goal of world peace.
yes, through teaching children how to communicate. And he said, I've no idea how I'm going to do this, but I just want, it was brilliant.
What was really interesting, just to interrupt briefly, is he'd had this idea about 3 months before in his hot tub on a Friday night, probably a glass of wine or three, but it had stayed with him and he hadn't ignored it, and he knew the open space was coming up and he had to feel brave to go and stand up there. But we were like, yeah, that's brilliant. And he's like, really? Oh, okay. And it was almost like he'd been given permission through big collaboration to think big. And that's why I loved it. And that's why he didn't need his blooming iPad to do it, because he was speaking from the heart. It was totally from the heart. He loved
It was. It was. So to me, I was really pleased about that. I thought that was really what we were after. And if we can continue to use this as a tool to create that space for people to come up with that sort of, because that's not something we sometimes get that in meetings, don't we? But not often. So I thought that was a big win. Jerry as well, as you mentioned. Jerry's got this dream of building a tree house to hold big cold retreats in. I think you said, wasn't it? Which is a great idea. But I'm not sure I don't think it got taken forward other than, Lord, we're sharing it now, so maybe it'll happen one day, I don't know.
Need a big baobab tree.
Yeah.
I think what was so lovely about that idea is it wasn't there at the beginning, but listening to everybody's big, audacious, hairy goals, he went, if we're all going to be doing these amazing things, we need somewhere to come back to and all be together to just retreat.
Yes.
And that's what I loved about it. It was a real pie in the sky, and everyone actually got me quite excited.
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, definitely.
Funny you should say that, because
Yes.
Anne was telling me earlier you had the same experience, didn't you, of having an idea. Do you want to come and tell us what?
So yeah, last time was the first time I'd been to a big coal meeting, and so I was sort of like, and I do quite like to sit back and observe. But when I left, I sort of I was sort of thinking this over, and so I have had a sort of idea that I'm just trying to. I'll just put it out there.
Yeah, put it out, share it.
But I teach an online course, and I've got quite a deep philanthropic vein that runs through me, and I'm very concerned about sort of Western companies exploiting the third world, and I thought it would be really nice to be able to put my course into a third world situation where there are people who are exploited by third world companies, and it sort of it crystallised around an idea where I heard about all the guides and the people who support people who climb Kilimanjaro. All these people want to create businesses, but they don't have the tools to do it. And what I teach is sort of is smartphone video, and it seemed to me that there are a lot of people around who've got handsets we've all discarded because we've upgraded that would be very possible to actually create video for these people to be able to sort of talk to people who were going out there, and they could buy from the people direct, and then they would be able to support their communities in a better way. And then Colin said, but we could do that because there are a lot of skills within this group that in fact that you could put all those things out in a way. So it's sort of like. So anyway, so that's what I thought.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Anne. So that's what we're trying to encourage, and that's sort of like, that was a brilliant outcome. So if you know anybody who can help Anne with that dream, please tell her. And of course, and Deb's actually came to the front of the room 3 times during the course of the day.
Voluntarily. Nobody pushed her. That was what was great.
So I don't know if those of you remember, Debs and Janine did their So first of all, she wouldn't do it on her own. She had to do it with Janine, and she basically pretty much stood over here and clung to the whiteboard for most of the time through it.
Yeah.
So that was great. And I just thought it was, I was surprised and amazed by what people came forward with, which was lovely. And the knowledge in the room. So we often say, there's loads of knowledge in the room. People know loads of stuff, We don't actually see it. What we saw, because people were putting ideas forward, it prompted other people to share their skills and share their knowledge, and which we wouldn't have known otherwise. So I think it was valuable from that perspective as well, and we should do more of it, in my humble opinion. And I think you sort of get to know. So I don't. Please agree or disagree with me if you were there. But I think you get to know people when you see them, when you work with them, because you get to see, in those conversations, you get to see how people think, you get to see how they act, how they behave, you get to see, they are being rather than sitting there listening or talking over a cup of tea about the holidays or whatever. And then when you get to really see people, that's how you build up trust, because you see them in action. You know what they do. It's not just all the talk. That was about.
So we did have some stepping stone moments, didn't we? Because a lot of people left with actions to do as well.
Yes. So we had a few things that were going forward. So Chris Sherlock had his thing was a community pub that he wanted to, or a pub that was empty that he wanted to recover for the community and put to use. So I think he had a number of contacts to follow up. Ideas for getting the community involved and going and doing a survey as to what they would want to do with the pub, that sort of thing. which I don't know if he's. Have you spoken to him?
He did say he had a meeting set up with 2 people. I'm not sure which 2 people they
Right.
were, but he's got a meeting going.
Yeah. Deb's wanted some help in. They're relocating their business. Gavin and who was it?
David Liddell.
David Liddell.
Yeah.
Were able to share their expertise with her, and they've been. Her and Jenny have been looking at various sites around Hertfordshire and Essex, and figuring out quite how mind-boggling moving several tons of timber is across the country. Well, not very far, but it doesn't really matter really. Angela came up with this idea, again, a spontaneous idea that just appeared to her. A little book of big love stories. So you might have seen in the Facebook group, she's been asking for people to give her stories.
She's already collated a couple of stories actually.
Yeah.
Done quite a few, yeah.
So those are the main ones I think are actions going forward.
We've also had Chris Sherlock and Mark Neild volunteer to support Ercan and myself on the
yes.
raising funds for big collaboration. So
Right.
we've already had one meeting with Chris as well. So that's in action too.
Yeah, excellent. So I think that was, the stated objective was to come up with some projects to take forward. But as I said at the time, the real objective was about actually getting people to talk to each other, get to know more about each other. And I think that happened. And then this what to me was an unexpected bonus, which was creating a space where people felt they could come forward with ideas. Was probably the most valuable win of the day for me. So we had some feedback at the end. So basically people had too many groups and didn't have enough of themselves to get around everywhere. So they basically wanted more time and more space to have conversations. So I think the idea is to try and run a one-day session, isn't there? Because typically these things are for a day or sometimes 2 or 3 days. There's comments about people being brave to get up and share stuff and getting to know more about people, and a few ideas about developing a common language. I wasn't quite sure I remember what that was about. But also talking more about collaborations rather than projects. So having a slightly more, rather than having a sort of like, I want to do this, it's got to happen by then, that sort of a convergent approach to making something happen, having a more, let's collaborate around this area. So a bit more of an open conversation. And that was, so of all the issues that came up, I was reflecting upon this, and I think some worked better than others. So the ones that seemed to work better for me tended to be open. So they were things that were, people wanted to do something in an area, but they didn't have the solution yet, didn't really quite understand it yet, it needed to be more explored. That seemed to me to be more engaging for people. Something people could understand. So Paul Baker was talking about systemic win. I still don't understand it. It was, and I'm sure I don't think it's as complicated as he was making it sound, to be honest. But I think people just couldn't quite get their heads around it. So you need something that people can get hold of and can engage with and think, oh yeah, I can help with that. When people were vulnerable, in as much as saying, I've got this idea, but I don't know what the answer is, or I don't even understand it yet, but I've got this idea. Rather than saying, I know what I've got to do, and I need you to come and help me. That's a bit, that's not so attractive to people. I don't think it's not as empowering. And where people are inviting people to get involved with them. So, again, saying, I'm leading this, putting themselves in a leadership position because someone needs to lead it, but not saying I'm the leader. I want you all to join in this.
Angela's classic example of that, I think, with her idea.
Yeah.
She needs the contribution of others for her idea to come to fruition. She was just facilitating the stories and the people that came to her.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with that was a very simple idea for people to understand. It was very engaging. So we all said, what a great idea. And people could immediately say, well, I know I can help with that. Whereas there were bigger ideas there that were not quite, which were a bit more nebulous, but were still engaging.
Quite so obvious, was it? Yeah.
Well, that was my summary of what went on, what I learnt from the day and got out of the day, and I thought it was a success. I enjoyed doing it, and I hope we do it again.
Okay, brilliant. Fantastic. And I think we have an accomplice meeting next Friday, whereby the accomplices are the people that host the Bee collaboration groups. So it's Scott, wherever he is behind the pillar, and Andrew Horder, Dave Caudle, and myself and Erkan. We get together once a quarter. So that will be something we'll discuss, whether we bring open space to these meetings. It might even be worth a conversation in Guiding Lights to see the value of holding them. It was suggested we have one a year in each meeting, which would then turn out to be one a quarter, because obviously there's 4 groups, and then one big one for a whole day. But we've got to gauge what people's appetite is for it. So it's something worth considering. So if yeah, try them out.